about you. So I'm a faculty member from the University of Montpellier in France. And also I'm an adjunct professor at Grapa University in Thailand as well. But here my topic about human rights in education. And I developed this kind of new concept of bienvivance. And to go through my paper or my talk, I need first to tell you that I'm a bit, I got 2 PhD, one in economics and one in psychology, and it will explain why I go through this kind of concept. So I tried to develop a new concept of bienvivance instead of well-being or instead of buen vivir as a human right, rebuilding the emotional capital of adolescents, refugees, and migrants, and using that as a framework, educational framework, to help people to recover from trauma when you are going through migration or going through difficulties. So I think we can switch for the second slides, please. Could you hear me? Can we switch? Yeah, thank you. So my work, I've been awarded the emotional capital concept. I've been awarded by the French Academy, and actually one paper have been published in the Time of India. I know you are from India, so because it's quite very innovative. It was in 2004 that I combined psychology and economics issues. So it have been published in different papers and books. And now I'm going through another concept, which is like bienvivance paradigm. So we can switch for the second one, for the next one, please. Next, yeah. So this is the outline, but I will not go through all these slides because it's a lot. So I will just go over the main message, and then we can come back, or you have the PowerPoint presentation if you want more detail. So we can go next. Next slides, please. Okay, so I don't know if you're familiar with you're going too fast. Can you come back? Yeah, so the emotional capital, what is different from human capital? Because you must be familiar about this concept of human capital, which have been designed and by Gary Becker, which is a Nobel Prize. So we find out that the human capital, the way we measure it is just measuring general knowledge and technical skills. But it's missing a lot of competencies that have never been measured by economists. Even myself, I'm an economist, we never measure it. So self-confidence, empathy, self-regulation, adaptability, flexibility, enthusiasm. So this is this kind of competencies, soft skill, which have never been, measured. So that's why I went through psychology and tried to bring back in the economics model this kind of psychological outcome from different research. So let's move on to the next slides. Thank you. Next one. Oh, yeah. So you see, when we need to measure, when we measure education impact, it's not only knowledge and technical skills, but it's also all these kind of soft skills. That's what I combine the 3 circle to, and being competent is combining the 3 R's. In French, we said savoir, savoir-faire, and savoir-être. Thank you. Next slide. So what I did, so I went through psychological outcome, and I found out from the work and research done by Dan Gorman, quite well known on emotional intelligence, and I use the emotional competencies grid to try to measure and to introduce them in economics model. And it came out, now I designed this concept of emotional capital, and that'll be on the next slide. It's a bit of domino. Yeah, so how I define the emotional capital, which is an economics concept, and is also booster capital. So the emotional capital is a set of resources of this kind of social and emotional competencies that I show you previously in the Gorman grids, which inherent to people and useful for personal professional and organizational development, but also if we develop this kind of skills among other population, among kids, it will participate to social cohesion and like quality of life, and it has really personal, economics, and social returns. That's why it's an economics concept. But moreover, it's like additional capital is boosting. This capital boosters the social capital from Bourdieu, and it also boosters the capital from designed by Gary Becker, is the human capital. Next slide, please. So I will go very fast in this one because it's not the purpose of my message. So we find out, because I did a PhD in psychology and neuropsychology. So I try to find out why emotion is so important nowadays. We used to exclude emotion from classes, from business, saying that it's not rational. And now we came back on this kind of, point of view, because we know that emotion is very important. It's actually making sense when you make the decision. I was saying previously for the former paper from the Chinese woman, like the emotion is involved in decision-making process. So we cannot anymore, exclude it, and we cannot anymore ignoring it. Why? Because there's like emotion have a lot of impact on brain, and so it can favor if you're using if you know how to manage your emotion, it can be used properly and in an effective way to manage your learning process, to manage in an efficient way your decision-making process. So you have also positive impact on health issue as well. We all know that when we know how to regulate our emotion, we'll feel better. So it's kind of, easy to understand. So next slides, please. So came up to the educational issue. So you must have been experienced like the fact that to learn, the main author who dominated the educational science was Piaget, pedagogue, and Piaget said that the way we learn, it's just like cognition function, but actually it was very limited. So when I went through this kind of neuroscience outcome, I find out that even we all experience that we know that we learn when we feel happy, we learn well when we feel like connected with a teacher or we feel connected with a subject. So it's not only cognition, it's not only like a information treatment, it's more than that when you want to learn and to get successful learning process. So I redesigned this kind of function of learning process this way. So the function of successful learning process is a function of first affect or cognition. Cognition is about like why I should learn this, and affect is how I feel regarding this topic, and then the cognition one, that's how I treat the information. So it kind of powerful, equations, because now it changed the way we have to design lesson. So we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So what is the impact and issues? So we cannot anymore teach the same way we used to teach by heart, or just like saying you have to learn by heart. Now we have to redesign this kind of, the way we design classes and, lesson by using this kind of, taking into account this kind of three factors. Anyway, so when I find out to go further, so emotional capital have a big impact and several impact in different disciplines, different topics. So even for employability, and actually for students, it will develop your empowerment or your student, what we call like trainee agency. So we can go, but to go through that, you need to have teachers who are what I name enabling teacher. They will allow you to develop your creativity or to boost yourself or to focus on your potential instead of to focus on your lacks. That is still the way we teach in France. We just look at what is missing and we try to teach students or trainees to fill the gap. But actually we should reverse the perspective and go on positive perspectives, looking at your potential. So can we go to the next one? Thank you. Actually, I don't need, I'll skip this one too. So next one. Okay, coming to this new concept of bienveillance. So when I find out where we got kids coming from different countries, from migration or from, even for former colonial, so some of them face some trauma, and how you can handle these kids or even teenager or even edu people coming from another culture, from trauma, to handle this trauma and to get involved or get included in the society where they go, where they are settled now. So I find out that the concept of bienveillance is kind of very powerful concept instead of the well-being concept. Let me explain why. So first of all, how I get inspired by this kind of concept that I developed. So I find out the limits of the hedonic economics paradigm, which was focused on like, I'm happy if I can buy a second mobile phone, or this kind of thing is very limited. Switching to like a hedonic model with I'm happy when the other people are happy, what we can find like in Bhutan, paradigm, or in India paradigm as well. So then I get inspired by also the macro approach from Asian culture and Oriental Christian, like, because animator is from India. So from the Nobel Prize Sen, who is focused on capabilities. So it's very inspiring, but it was a macro level. But above all, I was inspired by micro level, like individual's perspective, coming from the work I've been done by the professor from psychiatric department from Columbia, is Caicedo. What he's saying, this guy, he said like he looked at the patient who faced trauma. I said, instead to look at the trauma, can we look at what do they have that we can boost, which is positive? And that I use this way to look at how we can design a new paradigm that doesn't cost and doesn't have any objective to reach, but just focus on what we have and where we come from, this kind of assets we got potentially, and then use the pure potential to make people to get included. So can we go to the next one? Thank you. So what is the definition of bienveillance? So bienveillance is a state of mind that refers to the ability of a person, but it could be also on a micro level, an organization, a society, an entity of various natures, to live, flourish, grow, and evolve with vitality, which is possible in the situation of misery, disease, disability, handicap, scarcity, and oppression. So it's the vitality of life, it's the intensity and these dynamics. So it's like living in the moment present, so present states, I live well, and then I'm going well, which is direction, the right direction. So next slides. Thank you. Next. Oh, next one. Yeah, thank you. So what is the difference between like the well-being approach we have been like promoted by the World Health Organization? So the thing is that who define well-being as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So what does that mean? When you get sick, or when you get mutilated, when you get handicapped, how it works? You cannot reach this kind of definition or indicators. So how it can work? So I find that the bienveillance paradigm is a kind of this new concept I'm developing, coming from the word vivencia from Professor Caicedo, but I translated it in French language. But anyway, so this concept of bienveillance embraces a positive perspective, focus on the vitality of one life. So we all have potential, and that's what I'm focused on, instead of focus what is missing on the person. So it's never a physical state, nor an objective to reach. it's a state of mind. It's inducing in a way and the heart of living. So bienvivance manifests itself like various vital experiences, variations, ups and downs. It can be some break, and you have to recover. So it's kind of way of life. So next slides, please. Can we switch to the next one? Okay. So the bienvivance paradigm is okay. I didn't see, it's too small now. So well, anyway, so I designed a kind of a diagram that's combined different factors, which like is the model of bienvivance. Is you feel well when you got three factors going together, like your value. So as far you're the closest to your value, and you got some margin of freedom, and you can handle your life in a kind of safety or secure environment. So that's when you are here. I don't know if you see. So that's the best location. Here, you feel like so stressed, and you don't have any freedom, and your value is completely outside of what you expect from your job. So this model can be applied for life, work, for family, couple, you know, and it can be applied in different things, even for migration as well. So can we switch to the next one? Thank you. Okay, so I apply this. So I did also, of course, like some applied research, and I'm not sure I'm not going through that because it just must be boring. But I got this kind of 9 years experimental response, and I implement my program of emotional capital development to student and trainee vocational education. And what we find out, so we went through different, it was an experimental protocol. We got different groups, like the experimental groups and control groups as usual in a scientific protocol. So and I used two tools to develop this kind of emotional capital, like the collaborative education, like collaborative project management, and also meditation. That's why I was connected with Thailand, because I have an adjunct professor also at Brapa University, and I got students from Thailand, and I learned from them like meditation is making like people feel much more quiet, is a way to regulate your own emotion and to turn your emotional energy to a positive, objective. So can we switch to the next one? So I use these two tools. So all those kids are kids from vocational education, and quite often in France, vocational education is like relegate track that people don't fail in academic list, and they face some trauma, they face difficulties. And I find out that using this kind of positive active learning from like Dewey, like a famous researcher, and so if we use collaborative education, like putting people together in a team and working around a project, they feel much more confident, and they feel like they recover the self-esteem, and it worked very well. And also combined with like meditation, like knowing yourself, as Socrates or Plato was saying, knowing yourself is make you the possibility to project yourself in your life. So combining collaborative education, which make people feel more confident to each together, work together, and feel like they're not idiots people, and they feel like they can do something, and they're a real person with a lot of potential. With meditative lesson or practices, it came out that these kids regain their self-esteem. That's what we can apply to also migration, people facing like this kind of trauma from migration. So as you can see, they feel happy because they learn by pleasure, and they produce something, and they also recover the self-esteem. So we can go to, and this kind of tools, or this kind of methodology or pedagogical methodology have been awarded in Brussels, in in the EU Commission, because it's quite innovative. So very interesting. Okay, so next slides, and I think I will go to the conclusion. So can you switch? This is only the, okay, let's come to the outcome. So no, you are too fast. The first slides on the conclusion, Formula 1. Yes, okay, thank you. So the bienveillance paradigm and approach is rebuilding people emotional capital demonstrated like enthusiastic and promising positive outcome regarding psychological issues. When you come from migration and go through trauma, even ourselves, we all have trauma, even it can be small or big, but we have to focus on our potential, how we can handle it, how can we overcome trauma using our potential. But we need to be like, we need a teacher or trainers to be prepared to be enabling teacher to help you on to go in that. So the second, so we find out on the psychological test that they got a positive impact. So going through like a more general outcome, we find out that collaborative education and contemplative was very helpful. It support to recovering like self-esteem, and then creativity and freedom and like people empowerment. And then let's see, yeah. So now we go on the next slides and busy hand. So bienveillance is a path of
quickly go through the slides because we are exceeding the time and we have more parts.
So that's the final one. So the bienveillance can be seen as a human right in education to be explored with enthusiastic and promising outcome and value. That was the main message I want to share with you. Thank you. 搞崩嘎，谢谢。对，收看。Here's some references, and then it like the an appendix with all the detail of the statistic stuff. It's okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for this present.